Paul Watson, comments on what Steve was just saying.
Well, related to what you were just covering there, I mean, I wrote an article, several articles in early 2008, again wrote one last year. The one I wrote in June last year said, and this was specifically about the UK, crippling austerity cuts would force the economically deprived to, quote, take to the streets with a mindset of nothing to lose if the government handouts they have become dependent on are drastically reduced. And the system knew this was coming.
They knew they were going to devalue. Folks are saying, I'm still getting the same welfare. It's not worth as much. It doesn't buy as much via inflation. My grandmother, 10 years ago on Social Security, could survive. She can't now. What's going to happen with gangbangers who aren't well behaved like my 87-year-old grandmother? What's going to happen with gangbangers who've been brainwashed by a culture of acting tough and a police force that leaves them alone? They're going to go wild and feed on people who aren't criminals. What's going to happen in the UK, Paul, where nobody's got guns to defend themselves?
Well, what's going to happen is an increase of the scenes we've seen over the past few days. And they knew it was coming because the same thing happened in the 70s when we had the last round of austerity fascism. The difference between then and now is that we weren't such a rampant consumerist society, whereas then there was less looting because there were less portable goods in shops to steal. Whereas now the youth are bombarded with constant advertising about how if you don't have an iPhone, you're a loser. Basically, you're not going to have any friends. So they see this opportunity and they go out and fill their boots.
Well, you know who turned around the Los Angeles riots was the Koreans. The police stood down, as they always do. Globalist, the bosses make them do it. It was the Koreans finally turned the tide. I mean, let me tell you something. If you tried to loot shops here in Austin, you might get to 2 or 3 of them, but you'd run to the wrong shop and every one of you would die. If just a few of these thugs got killed, they would all stop it. And I'm telling you, none of us are safe if some of these people don't start getting what's coming to them.
Well, it's not just guns, though. It's generally about broken Britain. I mean, people don't talk to their neighbours. If a group of neighbours got together and said, right, we're going to... Because they're raiding off licences and family businesses that survived 2 world wars. So why aren't the neighbours getting together and saying, right, we're going to protect this building tonight, we're going to protect the street? It's just not happening because...
Some people are actually doing that now. I've seen on Twitter and things, people are trying to form groups.
I'm going to just be honest, this sounds fun. I mean, I would just love, with baseball bats and swords, to just wait for people. I don't need a gun.
Yeah, I don't think that's the way to deal with this, though, because it's just going to escalate it. I mean, people in the communities are coming out and they're trying to, do something about this. They've seen that trying to be divided, the communities are trying to be divided, the police are standing back and doing nothing. I'm not surprised the police are standing back and doing nothing, to be honest, because they're a part of this as well. Because they've had like 40,000 job cuts in London. They've all had pay cuts. And there's no senior police officers on the front line. All these police that you're seeing sort of standing back are doing so because they haven't had any proper training. And they're just thinking, well, why should I get involved in that? I'm not trained to do that. I'm not getting paid to get involved in that. I don't care about this community because I'm not from this community. And it's all...
They train them to crack heads at G20, though. They're very proficient at that.
Oh, listen, Steve, tell the story of you and your girlfriend. I've had it happen to me in England, where they just walk over if you're clean-cut and dressed nice and boss you around, the community police, because you're seen as a milk cow, a slave. They're going to make sure you're properly bowing. Tell folks what they do to you going out to dinner with your girlfriend.
Well, they just stop and searched me. But that's what they've been doing for years now. It's those kind of tactics in place of proper community policing that have led to all this kind of social breakdown. I mean, if they ploughed funds into proper policing instead of training the police that, everyone's scum and they've got to be dealt with just outside of the law, then this kind of thing might not have broken down as much as it has.
Well, I know I'm ranting. Just the images all over the U.S. In fact, I forgot to tell the story with one of our crew with his wife. These guys were trying to carjack her. She just pulled her gun out and they ran off. But the point is that this is scary, and I guess that's why I'm getting all wound up. At a subconscious level, I want to go ahead and have a fight with these criminals. because at an instinctive level, we've got to maintain law and order. And look at Katrina. The military and police wouldn't come help the public. Then a week later, they came in and went into high and dry areas to loot rich houses and take their guns, Paul, Steve.
Well, yeah, I mean, Parliament's going to meet on Thursday for one day. They've been recalled for the first time in nearly 10 years. And they're just going to pass some draconian piece of legislation that impacts legitimate law-abiding protesters and people going about their business. Criminals don't obey those kind of laws. So it's all designed. I mean, it's, as I said, it's manipulating both the underclass and the middle class, because it only results in the middle class calling for their own enslavement just to keep them safe, when, as has been proven, the police and the authorities cannot keep anyone safe, and they've got no interest in doing so. So that's why people need to, you know, protect themselves.
Well, you guys need to call for the unthinkable, the return of your right to keep and bear arms. It is time for Brits to take control of your government and to hand out the weapons, and your crime is going to dissipate overnight. Believe me, we don't have a lot of home invasions here in Texas compared to like New York or Illinois, because you come in somebody's house around here, you die. And I'm just telling you, I mean, it freaks me out to watch people in New York, Chicago, and other areas, wherever the people are liberals, just absolutely being gang raped. I mean, does it not upset you, Steve? Steve, what are you going to do if people come to your house? You going to use a butcher knife, or I guess you'll try to talk to them?
Well, I don't know what I'm going to do if they come to my house. That's the problem. I think, you know, we've gone too far down the line for that. That's in theory, that's a good solution, but it's not going to happen. I think, you know, let's talk about the media hype over this as well, because I think that's...
All right, let's come back and do that. Listen, I want you to get to the sporting goods stores and start buying baseball bats. And what you do is you get some nails and you hammer them through all over with a nice big truncheon. And you want to get 2 of those, because you might break one. After the first couple people you whack when they assault you. Somebody comes in your castle, you know what to do to them. Get fired up. Folks, it is a fundamental instinct that I have when I see criminals, whether they be police, North Korean commissars, the Ku Klux Klan, black racist, whoever they are, feeding on defenseless people. Remember Reginald Denny, truck driver? They pull him out and beat his face in with a brick until he basically has no face. I mean, that is horrible. And just because Reginald Denny's white doesn't mean he deserves that. And whether it's groups of white thugs that are doing this, black thugs, whatever, they all need to be punished. And the British government will not punish them, because governments let violent offenders go, and then they keep nonviolent in prison. That's the globalist model. Now, talking about how the media is spinning this, yes, they're saying we need TSA pat-downs everywhere, as if that will keep anyone safe. You can't keep knives away from criminals in a prison. The only answer is for the people to have a right to defend themselves. And, Steve, you said you're getting intel that folks are banding together and defending their shops. That's good. It's time, because as soon as that happens, and as soon as somebody comes in one of these shops and gets their heads clubbed in, you're going to start seeing the criminals have the fear of God in them, Steve.
Yeah, I mean, there's been some announcements on Twitter and stuff that people in certain areas have heard that they're next, you know, their area is being targeted next, so they're trying to organise themselves on Twitter to get prepared for it, to, you know, all come outside, not stay inside, sort of cowering, which is what all the police...
Now, what about the cases of even famous people get assaulted, they're being stabbed, they fight back, and the police go ahead and arrest them? Or the guy who'd been robbed 3 times and finally got an old shotgun and shot one of the guys, and then the guy that defended himself in his house being attacked, he went to prison?
Yeah, there's loads of stories like that. I mean, I don't know how it's going to go down if people all come out together. You know, the law-abiding people all come out together. I don't know how what they're going to do against these thugs, but basically if there's enough of them, then they're going to outnumber these thugs, and they're going to, you know, do an infinitely better job than the police are doing at the moment, which is to just sit back and basically secure the area, but do nothing to...
Let me ask you this, Steve. Do you think the police are standing down under orders so they can crack down and take more liberties, or are the police afraid of getting in trouble for political correctness?
I think it's a bit of both. I think, you know, I don't... as I said, there aren't any senior police there, so the police that are there are thinking, well, my seniors don't seem to care about this, so why should I? And also, I think they have been ordered to, in the wake of the media coverage and the hype around the heavy-handed tactics that we've seen in London recently, they have been ordered to stand back a little bit. But obviously, this is a very different situation. These are not legitimate protests.
Yeah, but stand back when thugs are doing stuff, but then they routinely beat peaceful protesters to death, or a guy delivering newspapers at G20?
Yeah, exactly. But I think they're different sets of police. I think the police in the suburbs of London are not, they're not the riot police that you see at the G20 cracking heads. They're not even trained as riot police. They're just normal police that normally are just out and about walking, on the beat. So they're thinking, it's not my job to go in there and crack heads, and I'm not going to do it.
But how could you control yourself watching people being drug out of cars? I'm not a cop, and I'm going to tell you right now, and I'm not a tough guy either. But if I see innocent people being attacked, I go into action. And I don't understand people that don't have an instinct to want to stomp criminals into the ground.
And the other thing is that the fires that they're starting, because they're starting the fires to destroy the CCTV cameras that are everywhere that are catching them doing the looting. So that, they're setting everything on fire. And then the fire brigade, when the fire brigade can finally get in to deal with it, they're being attacked as well. And the police are still standing back and doing nothing.
Yeah, they need to arm the firemen right now. I mean, this is asinine. That's like in the LA riots, shooting firemen. I mean, it is insane. And then it only hurts those communities because the businesses don't generally come back into the area.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and then you've got people saying, well, these thugs are saying, well, it's their fault, they're the businesses, they're the rich people, we don't have any jobs. And it all goes back to this sort of deep social unrest that's been fermented over these years by governments on both sides of the political spectrum in this country.
Well, Paul brought it up that it's mainly family shops, and in England, for those that don't know, there's thousands of shops in London that some of them are 200, 300 years old that have been handed down, and some of them aren't going to be coming back now, and just little family shops. We'll continue to cover this. Financial news coming up. We've also got Stuart Rhodes joining us because our government's busy demonizing conservatives, libertarians, patriots, instead of all the roving gangs we've got here. Paul Watson, any final comments?
Yeah, the rebels should now, the looters should be recognised as the new legitimate government of the United Kingdom. David Cameron should step down, according to the example that they've set in Libya.
Well, that's al-Qaeda looters, and they are being handed the bank accounts of the Libyan government and their property in England. And so actually that's probably what should happen. NATO should now invade England and give the looters control.